I'm going to go over the Excel spreadsheet for the comprehensive lease case. So I'm going to start with the lessor transfer, your transfer situation. So this is a lease receivable amortization schedule. In this case, the title will be transferred to the lessee at the end. So for my particular assumption, I assumed $1 million fair value. The residual value at the end is 0 because they're not going to get the item back. It's going to be transferred to lessee. So even though there is a residual value, the expected residual value to the lessor is 0. So what you have to do on this one is pretty simple. Put your fair value in there and it will plug and chug everything for you. So this one is kind of an example with some of the formulas, and then you're going to have to make some adjustments going forward. Here, the lessor returns the item. So in that situation, if they return the item, in my case, the residual value is 200,000. So what I did, if you can see up in the formula window, it's H7. I have it directly point to this row that says residual value to lessor, if any. And in this case, it's always going to be 20% of the fair value because we assume 20% of the fair value is the residual value in the case. So if you put in the fair value, and I have 20% residual value here, it will automatically calculate your payment. The lease receivable is pointing to the fair value because the lease receivable for lessor always equals fair value. That is not true for the lessee. So let's go to the lessee case for the guaranteed residual value. All right, this one is going to be a little bit weird because we have a guarantee in excess of the expected. So you put in your fair value. That's 20% of the fair value is the expected residual value. That is not necessarily what they expect to get. That's what they expect the item to be worth at the end of the lease. But in this case, the lessee has guaranteed to the lessor that the item will be worth 120% of the expected residual value, and if not, they'll pay the difference. So if you look at the title here, payment and expected payment on any guaranteed residual value, well, if they get to the end of the lease and it's worth 200,000, but they guaranteed 240, then they have to pay 40,000. So you have to finish this for yours. And then we'll think about it a little bit. But if the lessor, if they expect to get 240,000 because of the guarantee, they're going to get 200,000 when it's returned and they sell it, and the extra 40,000 is cash. So we need 240,000 here. Well, you don't really see where that's going. Where it's going is into the payment function. So the payment function is H4, which is 6% implicit rate. And then in the formula just below, N-PERS, number of periods, which is H5, 8 for 8 years. And then PV is the fair value or the present value. It's negative because the lessor gives up the item. So they're essentially, in my case, giving up $1 million on day one. Then the FV, its final value or future value, it's in brackets because the formula does not require it. You may just be calculating a payment when there's only a present value. In this case, this one's positive because they expect to get back an inflow of 240,000. And then at the end, H11 is the annuity type. So if you look down here, the column of information, annuity type, 0 ordinary and 1 due. Now you could type those in all by hand, but by having these references, it gives you more flexibility. Okay, so you put that all in, then you get your payment, and then this thing over here points to the payment. And so that the 129,045 is pointing to cell H3. Up here, notice for the lessee, the amount capitalized initially before the first payment is not the fair value because it's the present value of these payments right here, which is And I put a minus here because if you put positives in it, then it comes out negative, so I got to take the negative. So it's the present value of the rate, which is 6%, N per number of periods, which is 8, C4, which is the payment, so I just point to one payment there, C12, which is the amount at the end, and then H11, the type 1. So that gives you the present value. This is going to drive me a little crazy, so what I'm going to do is get the right format. And there we go. Okay. Get rid of those decimals. We don't need them. All right. Now, this is no guarantee over here. So if I were you, instead of reinventing the wheel, I would go copy. Whoops. Copy. Paste the payment formula. I'm going to put my million here. Okay. My expected residual value, there's no guarantee. It's 0.2 times that. The guaranteed residual is value 0, so the expected payment on 0, and the lessor's expected value will equal this 200,000 when the item is returned. Now I'm going to take this. Let's see if this works. I can just go Control copy all the formulas, and then what I'm going to do here is paste special. I just want to paste formulas only. Okay. And this has to equal, this equals the expected payment on the guaranteed residual value of 0. And so if we compare it to the guaranteed residual value is 874,518. And this is 874,518. Does that bother you? Rate, FV, C12 is 0. Doesn't bother me at all. So they're the same, and I would have to explore. So they're getting it back here without the guarantee. They're getting back 240. So it all balances out in present value. Okay, in either case, yeah, when the item's returned. But what I'm going to tell you is when in doubt, work it out. Always work it out. This is not going to be every situation, which is why leases can be confusing. Just always work it out. Okay, and finally, we have the operating lease. So what we're going to do is just point. Okay, so we point to the amount capitalized for the right of use asset. Lease expense is just going to be the payment, so we point. And then I can just say equals this and equals, then the amortization we start at first year, and then I can copy all these. Copy V, the slash year is going to be 0. And the amortization equals the difference between the lease expense and the interest on the liability. The right of use asset equals the beginning balance minus the amortization. And I can take these all the way down. And that's not working. So we'll check that in a second. Check these all the way down. There's 4 payments. Oops. Equals this and equals this. 4 payments. There we go. Okay. So this all works out. Hope that helps you figure out how to use the Excel templates. Once you know what goes where, it's you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just look at what happened in a prior template and try to use that.